Welcome to True Betrayal Stories, where secrets are exposed, lies unravel, and justice is served. If you love shocking betrayal stories and satisfying revenge, don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you never miss an update. Noah Brooks stepped off the Greyhound bus into the stale heat of early afternoon, his boots hitting the concrete like he was still in formation. He adjusted the strap of his duffel bag, scanned the familiar parking lot of the Clearfield bus terminal, and took a long breath of the dusty spring air. It smelled like home, grass, distant barbecue smoke, and something faintly industrial from the factory across town. He hadn't told anyone he was coming back. Not his old buddies, not his neighbor who always watered their front lawn too aggressively, not even Emily. Especially not Emily. After nearly 5 months at the base, training and running supply coordination for new recruits, he'd been granted an unexpected 6-day leave. Most of the other guys immediately called their wives or girlfriends to set something up. Noah didn't. He wanted to show up at the front door and see the exact moment Emily realized her husband had come home early. He smiled just thinking about it. The cab ride from the terminal to their house was uneventful. The driver didn't talk much, just kept the radio low and the windows cracked. When they turned down Maple Hill Lane, Noah's chest tightened slightly. It was always like this every time he returned from a deployment or extended stay. That quiet mixture of hope, nerves, and a strange detachment, as if life back home had kept going without him, and now he had to step into it like nothing ever paused. The house came into view. Still the same pale yellow siding, still the same flower pot on the porch, except now the plant inside looked dead. The blinds were drawn. The car wasn't in the driveway. Emily must have been at work. That was good. It gave him a head start on the surprise. He paid the driver, slung his duffel over his shoulder, and walked up the steps. The welcome mat was a little crooked. The porch light bulb had gone out, but it was still home. He unlocked the door and stepped inside, and immediately something felt off. It wasn't dramatic. There wasn't a crime scene waiting for him or a stranger sitting in his living room. It was subtle. The air inside was still, heavy, a little musty, like the windows hadn't been opened in a while. The house was dark despite the sun outside. Noah dropped his bag next to the door and looked around. The living room was cluttered. Pillows scattered on the couch. A hoodie draped over the back of a chair. Empty water bottles on the coffee table. A cereal bowl with dried milk crusted on the rim. He blinked. Emily never left dishes out. Ever. It was something she always reminded him about when he was home. "We're not animals," she used to joke, tapping the rim of the sink. "No army barracks rules here." He moved into the kitchen. The counters had crumbs. The trash bin was nearly overflowing. He opened the fridge, old takeout boxes, an expired carton of orange juice, and a half-eaten slice of cheesecake still in its plastic container from the grocery store. Noah closed the fridge, slowly. He wasn't angry, not even suspicious yet. He just felt strange, like he'd walked into someone else's house wearing his own clothes. Maybe she was stressed. Maybe work was heavier than she'd let on during their phone calls. Maybe she'd been sick. That was it, he told himself. She was probably overwhelmed, maybe even depressed, just hadn't told him. That wasn't unusual when one's spouse was away for so long. He'd seen it with other soldiers. He rolled up his sleeves and started cleaning. It wasn't just about tidying up. It was an act of love, of reclaiming his place, of doing something for her without needing to be asked. As he wiped down counters and took out trash, he started imagining how it would go. She'd walk in, see the clean house, and cry in relief. They'd hug. They'd eat dinner. Maybe even talk about trying again, trying for real this time, to have a kid. They'd been dancing around that conversation for over a year. He knew she wanted to be a mom. He wanted to be a dad too, eventually. But the timing never lined up. In the middle of these thoughts, he moved into the hallway and then into the bathroom. It was the last room to clean. The bathroom wasn't filthy, but it had a messier energy. Towels piled in the hamper, makeup wipes left near the mirror. The trash can was full, and when he lifted the lid to press things down, he saw something tucked deep under some tissues. A flash of plastic, white, rectangular. He paused. Gently, he pulled the wad of tissues away. A pregnancy test. Positive. Two bold pink lines staring up at him like wounds. He froze, breath catching in his chest. His mind didn't jump to conclusions, not right away. Instead, it fought. 100 scenarios rushed in. Maybe it was old. Maybe it belonged to a friend. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe it was hers, but wrong. But logic, cold and precise, cut through the fog. She hadn't told him anything, and they hadn't been together physically in nearly 5 months. There was no chance this was his. The room spun, his hands slowly lowered, placing the test back into the trash exactly as he'd found it. He pressed the tissues back over it. Closed the lid. He walked out of the bathroom, not even realizing his fingers were trembling. In the hallway, he stood in silence for a long time. The house, which once held warmth, now felt like it was staring back at him, like the walls had been watching something he hadn't seen. His surprise visit had become something else entirely. He wasn't here to hug his wife or start fresh. He was here to find out who she really was when he wasn't looking. Emily walked through the front door at 6:17 p.m., just as the sky outside began to dim. She wore a soft blue blouse, her work bag slung across one shoulder, hair slightly frizzy from the spring humidity. When she looked up and saw Noah standing in the living room, her steps halted for a half second. Her eyes widened. "Noah?" He gave her a smile that wasn't quite a smile. "Surprise." Her face lit up. She rushed toward him, arms outstretched, pulling him into a warm hug. "What are you doing here? You didn't say anything." "I thought I'd drop in and sweep you off your feet," he said lightly, hugging her back. Emily pulled away, eyes scanning his face. "You're really here." She blinked quickly, like she might cry, but the tears didn't come. "God, I've missed you." "I've missed you too," he said. He almost meant it, but deep inside something had broken. That fragile thread of trust that held their years together was already unraveling. Still, he didn't mention the test, not that night. Instead, they had dinner. Noah reheated some leftover pasta he'd found in the fridge, pretending it tasted fine. They watched an episode of a series Emily had apparently started without him. She sat close on the couch, her head resting on his shoulder. It all looked right on the outside. But to Noah, the silence between their words was too loud to ignore. He lay awake long after she'd fallen asleep beside him. She slept deeply, peacefully, and he stared at the ceiling, eyes wide, brain racing. The next morning, while Emily was in the shower, he stood alone in the kitchen with his coffee cooling in his hands. The steam curled upward, vanishing into the still air. He didn't need confirmation, but he wanted it. When she left for work, he got to work too. From his backpack, he pulled out the equipment he'd ordered months ago on a whim. Mini Wi-Fi security cams disguised as standard home gadgets. One looked like a power adapter, the other like a smoke detector. He never thought he'd actually use them, but now they felt like insurance. He installed one above the TV in the living room, angled just enough to capture the couch, the front door, and part of the hallway. Another went on the hallway wall facing the bedroom door. Both synced to his encrypted cloud storage. Lastly, he placed a small motion sensor under the kitchen table, set to trigger audio recording whenever someone walked by. By the time Emily returned home that afternoon, everything was exactly where it used to be. Noah greeted her with a kiss and offered to make dinner. She smiled, clearly enjoying the unexpected domesticity. They ate, talked about work, and laughed at a video she showed him on her phone. She was good at pretending. But so was he. 2 days later, Noah left. He packed his things, gave her a long goodbye, promised to call every night. The same as always. She hugged him at the door, kissed him twice, and whispered, "Be safe." He promised he would. As the taxi drove away from the house, Noah didn't look back. Back at the base, life picked up quickly. Morning drills, tactical preparation, late-night maintenance checks. But every night, in the quiet corner of the barracks, Noah checked the footage. At first, there was nothing. Emily came home from work. She cooked, watched TV, went to bed. But on the third night, the camera caught her sitting on the couch, phone in hand, staring at the screen for a long time, before typing something. A few seconds later, she smiled. She never smiled at her phone when texting him. The next night, she came home later than usual. Her hair looked styled, makeup slightly freshened. She tossed her heels by the door and took a long call in the kitchen. Noah couldn't hear the other voice, but her tone was low. Sweet, careful. She laughed. It wasn't the laugh she gave him. Noah clenched his jaw. He forwarded the footage to Kyle, his closest friend since high school. Kyle was a freelance graphic designer who worked from home and had the free time and loyalty Noah needed. "I need your eyes on her," Noah texted, "when she leaves the house. Nighttime, mostly." Kyle didn't ask questions. "Got it. I'll tail her after 9. Let you know what I find." 3 nights later, Kyle messaged him just after midnight. "Saw her leave around 9:20. Followed her across town. She met a guy. Tall, dark hair, wore a hoodie. They sat in his car for 15 minutes, then drove back to your place. He went inside." Noah's fingers froze over his phone. "You get a good look at him?" "Yeah, pretty sure it's Matt. Remember that dude from her old job? You said he was too friendly at the office party." Noah remembered. Vaguely. Matthew, some guy who used to hover around Emily at company events. Emily always said he was just a harmless flirt. Back then, Noah had believed her, but the footage confirmed it. Camera timestamp, 9:54 p.m. A knock on the front door. Emily opened it, smiled, and stepped aside. Matt walked in, hood down, wiping raindrops from his jacket. He stayed for over an hour. The camera showed them sitting close on the couch. Not touching at first, but eventually he leaned in. She laughed, touched his knee. At 10:43 p.m., the lights in the hallway dimmed, and both disappeared into the bedroom. The hallway camera caught the door closing. Noah didn't watch the full recording. He didn't need to. The evidence was there. The betrayal was complete. He backed out of the footage, locked his phone, and sat in the silence of his bunk, listening to the faint hum of the ceiling fan overhead. He thought of the test, the one in the trash, the quietness of the house that day, and how perfectly everything suddenly fit. He didn't feel rage, just a cold clarity. This wasn't an affair of the body alone. It was a betrayal of everything they'd built. And from this point forward, he knew exactly what he had to do. Before the lies, before the cameras, before the silence and the guilt, there was just loneliness. Emily used to love the quiet. She'd grown up in a noisy house, the kind with pots always clanging, her mother's voice barking out orders from the kitchen, and a father who either worked too much or drank too much. Solitude, when she married Noah, had felt like a relief. At first, she welcomed the space when he was away, curled up on the couch with a blanket. Her favorite shows queued up, a glass of wine in hand. She'd burn candles that reminded her of spring rain or fresh linen, cook small dinners for one, and write him long letters she didn't always send. But over time, the silence stretched. It became heavy, crushing even. Noah was gone more often than not. His job, his calling, it pulled him to dusty bases and freezing barracks and endless drills, while she sat in a house filled with echoes and unanswered questions. And then there was Martha. Her mother was a force, a well-meaning, overbearing presence who called at least twice a week to ask the same question in slightly different tones. "So, any news yet?" Meaning, "Are you pregnant?" Emily would force a smile through the phone. "No, Mom, not yet." "But it's been years. I mean, Emily, come on. How long are you going to wait?" "He's not here, Mom. He's in the Army." There are weekends. You know what they say, where there's a will. Mom, fine, fine. I'm just saying, a man like Noah, he'll want a family eventually. Don't wait until it's too late. Every conversation chipped away at her, not because Martha was wrong, but because Martha knew exactly where to poke. And then Matt reappeared. He was an old co-worker, had left the accounting firm 2 years ago, but stayed in touch with a few people, Emily included. Every few months, he'd shoot her a text. "Hey, stranger." Still crunching numbers? She'd roll her eyes, smile, and type back something light. "Unfortunately, someone's gotta fund your failed podcast career." They never went beyond that. Until one night, a Tuesday, she had come home late from work, exhausted, frustrated, and barely held together. Noah hadn't called in 3 days. He'd warned her, of course, said the base had bad reception, the drills were nonstop. But it didn't make it easier. Matt texted at 9:42 p.m. "I'm grabbing a drink. You look like someone who could use one. You in?" She should have said no, She almost did, but then she thought of the cold house, the quiet, the leftovers she didn't want, the wine she didn't feel like opening alone. "One drink," she replied. They met at a small bar across town where the lighting was soft and the music low. He looked different, rougher around the edges, maybe a little smug, but he made her laugh, complimented her dress, told her she looked good, that she hadn't aged a day. She hadn't laughed that freely in months. After 2 drinks, her shoulders were looser. After 4, her judgment was gone. Matt offered to drive her home. She didn't remember how they got from the car to the living room. Just flashes. His hands on her waist, her shirt on the floor, the sound of rain against the windows. And then, silence. When she woke up the next morning, the house smelled like stale perfume and regret. Her head pounded. Matt was gone. Her clothes were in a pile by the door. Her throat was dry. She sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, hands clasped, heart racing. She told herself it meant nothing, that it was the alcohol, that it was just a lapse, a mistake, but it didn't feel like one. It felt like something had snapped open inside her, something dangerous, something hollow. She ignored his text for a week, then caved. "That can't happen again," she wrote. He replied instantly, "It's not a crime to need someone, I get it." She stared at that sentence for a long time. It's not a crime to need someone. That's how it started. The next time they met, she was sober. It wasn't passion. It wasn't even pleasure. It was relief. Relief from the waiting, the silence, the constant pressure of pretending everything was fine. Matt didn't ask her to leave Noah, didn't make promises. He was a presence, a momentary comfort, a soft place to fall. But each time he left, the guilt crawled in deeper. She started sleeping with the lights off, started avoiding mirrors. She began buying cheap pregnancy tests every few weeks, her hands shaking as she waited for the results. When the test turned positive, she sat on the bathroom floor and stared at it for a long time. It wasn't Noah's. She knew that without question. And she didn't know what scared her more, the pregnancy or the fact that a part of her felt relieved. It meant something was happening, something real, something hers. She almost told Matt, but she didn't. She almost told Noah, but she couldn't. So she did what she'd become good at. She buried it all, pushed it down beneath the smile she wore when she answered his calls. Let it rot behind the mask she wore at work, at dinner, and in bed, until the day he came home, unannounced, with eyes that saw everything. Noah stood at the edge of the bus terminal, watching as the small town behind him faded into the blur of diesel fumes and morning fog. The duffel bag slung over his shoulder felt heavier than it should. Not because of its contents, but because of what he was bringing back, the truth. It had taken every ounce of restraint to leave the house without confronting Emily. But confronting her wasn't the goal. Not yet. His leave had ended. His mission, however, was far from over. Back at the base, life moved forward with mechanical precision. Drills, logistics reports, gear checks. The usual. But for Noah, everything felt different now. Every movement felt muted. Every conversation, distant. He was physically present, mentally elsewhere. The morning after he returned, he went directly to his commanding officer's office. "Sir," he said calmly, standing at attention, "I need to request emergency family leave." The officer looked up, surprised. "Didn't you just get back from leave?" "Yes, sir, but there's a developing situation at home that requires my attention." He didn't offer details. He didn't have to. The officer saw something in his face, something heavy. After a beat, he nodded. "You've earned it. You've got 7 days. Make it count." Noah saluted and stepped out. His next stop was the base's secure printing facility. There, in a quiet corner of the room, he inserted a USB stick and slowly began printing. One by one. The documents emerged. A high-resolution photo of Matt stepping through the front door of Noah's house. Time-stamped. Crystal clear. Another photo, Matt and Emily sitting too close on the couch, her hand resting casually on his thigh. A third, the hallway door closed, bedroom light on, Matt's shoes left near the entrance. Then a printout of the camera log. Nights and times Matt visited. Durations. Kyle had also delivered. A clear picture of Emily and Matt walking out of a Thai restaurant 2 towns over, holding a single umbrella. Matt's hand on her lower back, both of them smiling. Noah added it to the pile. Finally, he printed a photo of the positive pregnancy test. He didn't want to, but he knew it needed to be in the file. Once everything was printed, he arranged them into a folder. Black, plain, cold. He labeled it with a single strip of tape and one word: closure. He spent that night alone in his barracks, flipping through the folder slowly. Not obsessively, just methodically, like a soldier checking his gear. Everything was here. Everything he needed. And yet he felt no satisfaction, no power, just a dull ache in his chest. The kind that sat beneath your ribs and refused to leave. This wasn't revenge. This was exit. He didn't want to ruin Emily. He didn't want to ruin Matt. He just didn't want to carry any of this anymore. The plan wasn't about retribution. It was about release. He would go back one final time, lay it all on the table, ask no questions, offer no threats, just walk away from the ashes before they choked him too. It was still early when Noah pulled into the driveway. The sky was a soft shade of pale gray, not yet fully awake, and the dew clung to the grass like tiny secrets. He sat in the car for a minute, engine off, the only sound the ticking of the cooling metal. Saturday morning, the same kind of day they used to spend making pancakes in pajamas. He stepped out, folder in hand. The house looked unchanged, quiet, still. The flower pot on the porch was now completely dead, just dry twigs in a chipped ceramic pot. He unlocked the front door and stepped inside. Emily was in the kitchen, barefoot, pouring coffee into a chipped mug. Her hair was down, pajamas wrinkled. She looked up and froze when she saw him. "Noah," her voice cracked in surprise. "What are you—" "I got another week of leave," he said simply, walking past her. She didn't move, didn't follow right away. He walked into the dining room and laid the black folder on the table, unzipped it, took out every piece of paper, every photo, spread them across the surface slowly, calmly. Emily hovered in the doorway, arms crossed over her chest, eyes darting from the folder to his face. "What is all this?" He gestured toward the table. "Sit." She hesitated, then obeyed. The room filled with the rustle of paper as she slowly reached for the photos. Her eyes widened with each one. A tremble started in her hands. The photo of Matt entering the house, the timestamp, the picture of them at dinner, the ultrasound-stamped test. The silence was suffocating. Noah sat across from her, hands clasped on the table, calm, unshaken. He had rehearsed this in his mind 1,000 times. Emily finally spoke, voice breaking. "I didn't think you'd ever find out." "I did." Tears welled up in her eyes. "I wasn't trying to hurt you." "I know. It just happened. I was lonely. You were never home. I tried to stay strong, Noah. I really did." He didn't interrupt, just let her speak. "I missed you so much," she whispered. "But the calls got shorter, the visits fewer, and then Matt just showed up again. It started small. He checked in on me, asked how I was doing. I didn't think anything of it at first." She picked up one of the photos and stared at it like it was a piece of someone else's life. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. I swear to God," Noah leaned forward slightly, voice quiet. "Then why didn't you stop it?" Emily's lip quivered. "I don't know. I hated myself every time. But I felt seen, needed, like someone actually wanted me. Not just when the army gave you time to come home." There it was, the truth, the soft, aching confession of someone who got tired of waiting. "I should have told you," she sobbed. "I should have stopped. I wanted to, I didn't know how to climb out." Noah nodded slowly, then stood. Emily reached for his arm. "Please, don't walk away like this. I'm begging you." He looked down at her hand but didn't shake it off, just held her gaze. "I'm not angry, Emily." Her brows pulled together, confused. "You're not?" "No," he said quietly. Because part of this is on me. I chose this life. I knew it would mean distance, sacrifice, and I thought we were strong enough to handle it. He took a slow breath, then added, but that doesn't mean I can forget what you did, or live with it. Her hand dropped. He stepped back. You were once the person I would have died for, he said. But now, I just want to live, without waking up every day and seeing the person who broke me. Emily's breath caught in her throat. Her face crumpled. Noah, please, don't leave like this. He didn't answer. He didn't scream, didn't curse. He just turned and walked out of the room. The sun had barely risen when Noah started packing. There wasn't much to take. Most of his things were already at the base. He moved with the quiet efficiency of someone used to leaving, folding, zipping, lifting without a sound. The bedroom felt colder with every drawer he emptied. Emily sat on the edge of the bed, clutching a crumpled tissue in one hand, still wearing the same shirt from the night before. Her face was puffy, her eyes rimmed red. He didn't look at her. He didn't have to. She hadn't said a word since their conversation. Maybe because she knew there was nothing left to say. When he finally zipped the duffel shut and slung it over his shoulder, he turned to her one last time. I left the papers on the dining table, he said, voice calm. They're already filed. You just need to sign the last page. Emily opened her mouth like she might protest, but no sound came out. I'll handle the rest, he continued. Lawyers, logistics, it's all taken care of. She swallowed. And the house? Noah nodded slowly. It stays with me. She blinked, looking up at him through swollen eyes. I don't have anywhere to go. You can go to your mother's. She won't, her voice cracked. She won't take me back. That's not my problem anymore. Emily's shoulders dropped as if someone had yanked the strings from inside her. She didn't argue. Maybe she understood this was the softest he was ever going to be. That afternoon, she packed a few suitcases and called a cab. Noah didn't watch her leave. He stood in the kitchen, arms crossed, eyes on the floor, as the door closed behind her with a soft click. It wasn't loud. It didn't slam, but it felt final. Later that evening, Martha called. Noah didn't pick up, but her voicemail came through. Her voice was clipped, colder than he remembered. Noah, I know Emily's with me now, and I know what she did. But you don't just throw people away. You two made vows. You think you're better than everyone just because you're in uniform? You're not. You should have been around more. He listened to the whole thing, then deleted it. A few hours later, Emily sent a text. She's not speaking to me either. Says I betrayed the most sacred thing a woman has, her family. I don't know where to go next. Noah stared at the screen unmoved. He typed back 2 words. You'll manage. And that was the last thing he ever sent her. 2 weeks later, Kyle reached out again. Remember Matt? He texted. Gone. Noah replied, what do you mean? Disappeared. New job in another state, apparently. Blocked Emily. Won't return her calls. Didn't show up to her doctor's appointment. Radio silence. Noah didn't reply. He wasn't surprised. Some men like Matt always disappear when reality arrives. He sat in the living room, in the same spot where Matt had once rested his hand on Emily's leg, and let the silence wash over him. The house was his again, but it didn't feel like home. Not yet. Still, it was a start, a space to reclaim, a wound to clean, a war to survive, quietly and with dignity. 12 months passed. The days blurred into drills, paperwork, long walks between steel buildings, and the constant rotation of new recruits. But for Noah Brooks, time no longer felt like a weight. It felt like motion, something he could finally control again. His transfer had gone through shortly after the divorce was finalized. A new base, a new post, new faces. No more old memories clinging to furniture and doorknobs. He moved into a modest on-site apartment. Nothing fancy, just functional. Quiet, clean. The Army, in its strange way, had saved him again. Within 6 months, he was promoted. Logistics coordinator with additional responsibilities in mental resilience training for junior soldiers. It wasn't just numbers and supply lines anymore. It was people, stories, struggles that echoed his own. He became the guy younger soldiers gravitated toward, the one who listened without judging, who said the hard things calmly, who had clearly been through something and survived it. He didn't talk about Emily, not even when asked, not even when alone. She became a shadow folded into the part of him that no longer bled. He never remarried, never even dated seriously. A few conversations here and there, the occasional coffee with a civilian staff member or a fellow soldier, but nothing that lasted longer than a few polite texts. Noah wasn't bitter. He was simply peaceful. He ran more, started reading again, bought a record player and started collecting old jazz albums from base thrift stores. On quiet nights, he'd sip coffee and let the crackle of vinyl fill the silence. Meanwhile, across the state, life moved differently for Emily. She gave birth in early spring, alone. The hospital records listed Matt as unknown under the father's information. He had never answered her calls, never responded to the texts about doctor visits or the photo she'd nervously sent of her swollen belly in the third trimester. He was gone, just like Kyle said. The baby boy was born healthy, small but strong. She named him Caleb, a name she and Noah had once circled together on a list of someday names. He never knew she used it. Martha visited once, held the baby for 3 minutes, said nothing, and left. She never came back. Emily tried in those first few weeks to reach out to friends, a co-worker from the firm, a girl she used to take yoga with, an old college roommate. They all responded the same way, briefly, politely, and then disappeared. People had heard the story. Whispers moved fast in a small town. Emily cheated on her soldier husband while he was deployed. It didn't matter that she cried herself to sleep every night. It didn't matter that she regretted everything. People didn't want regret. They wanted loyalty. So Emily lived in a cramped second-floor apartment above a laundromat, worked part-time at a tax prep office where the manager barely spoke to her. She paid bills on time, fed Caleb well, and took the bus everywhere. She no longer checked Matt's social media. He was gone, truly gone. She didn't talk about Noah, didn't tell Caleb anything about him, but every once in a while on rainy nights, when the power flickered, or when Caleb cried inconsolably at 3 a.m., she would open an old drawer and stare at a photo of her and Noah on their wedding day. Her eyes lingered not on herself, not on the dress or the flowers, but on his face, the way he had looked at her, like she was his whole world, and she knew in the deepest part of her that still could feel she would never again be looked at that way. The old cemetery on Hillcrest Lane hadn't changed. The wrought iron gates still creaked on their hinges. The trees still whispered in the wind. Rows of headstones stood like soldiers of time, their names fading, but their stories quietly lingering in the soil. Noah stood near the back, where the grass grew uneven, and the sunlight slipped through tall pines and scattered beams. He knelt beside his father's grave, brushing a few dried leaves from the name etched in stone. James Brooks' beloved husband, devoted father. U.S. Navy, retired. Noah said nothing aloud. He never did. He just stood there for a while, hands tucked in his jacket, letting the silence speak what words could not. A full year had passed since he last visited, but it never felt strange to return. This place didn't ask for explanations. As he turned to leave, a soft sound caught his ear. Wheels on gravel. He glanced up. There she was. Emily, walking slowly along the path that bordered the far side of the cemetery, pushing a small stroller. A diaper bag was slung over her shoulder. Her hair was longer now, pulled back in a low bun. She wore no makeup, just a plain sweater, worn jeans, and tired eyes. She wasn't heading to a grave. She was just passing through. Noah froze where he stood. Their eyes met. For a heartbeat, time paused. The wind stilled. The sound of birds overhead vanished. Only the faint creak of the stroller wheels remained. Emily's face paled. She blinked, once, then lowered her gaze quickly, almost as if the sight of him burned. She didn't speak. She didn't wave. She simply nodded, barely, and looked away. Noah gave her a single nod in return. No smile, no anger, just acknowledgement. As she walked past, he glanced briefly at the stroller. A chubby baby boy lay inside, dozing peacefully. His tiny fingers twitched in sleep. Emily's steps didn't falter. She didn't look back. She just kept walking. And when she disappeared beyond the gate, Noah exhaled. Deep, full, final. He stood there for another minute, letting the weight of the moment settle around him like dust. Then he turned toward the grave one last time, whispering under his breath, "Goodbye." And he walked away, not from pain, not from bitterness, but from the story that had ended long ago. I used to think forgiveness made you weak, that letting go meant surrendering to the people who broke you. But I was wrong. Forgiveness isn't for them, it's for you. So you can live, so you can breathe again, so you can finally walk away without carrying them on your back. What do you think about Noah's decision? He walked away in silence. But was that forgiveness or the quietest form of heartbreak? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Did this story give you closure or leave you with more questions? If you love emotional, raw, and powerful betrayal stories that stay with you long after they end, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.